Hello everybody. So I've had some people ask me in the past to just make a video on like showing me how, or showing you guys how I animate. So that's what this video is going to be right now. It's not going to really be a tutorial because I don't really have it in me to teach anybody anything, but I'm just going to like record myself animating and talking a little bit through it and just like showing you how I break down scenes and stuff a little bit. So right now I have, this is Adobe Animate, which is a program I definitely suggest if you want to get into animation. And inside the scene I have a comp. The comp begins at frame 34, although you can go back further and see it there. And you can click inside the comp and you can click inside there, and then there's different models in here. So I'm working on a Green Goblin animation right now, and possibly it might already be up on Tell It Animated currently. And there's other comps inside of here, such as different Spider-Man comps that he eventually interacts with later on in the animation. And all of them are their own models that they can be animated and moved around. And basically that's like the quickest way to animate if you're just one person, is like to build a model and then kind of puppet it. Although it's not quite that simple, because you do occasionally have to draw like different hands, different legs, different arms, different torsos, and just like different looks or stuff. So inside of in his hand comp is a whole bunch of hands that I've used before in the 2002 animation that I did already. This is currently going to be for the No Way Home scene, which is 2021. So this is the last scene, or last movie scene of the animation for the Goblin video, and inside has a whole bunch of different hands. Most of those are just reused hands from other ones, but the ones that are colored properly I've probably used before. And yeah, so basically the way I set up the comp is I'll click out of this, and then so I have this layer, it says animation. Oh, you can't really see that. Let me just drag this down. So right here you can see that this is a layer that says animation. That's where the comp is. Starts at frame 34. There's an audio track. It starts a little bit before the scene, and then when the narration says
2002 Goblin is mistakenly
the 2002 Goblin, that's when he's going to pop in. And I have a bit of reuse for that. I've had him drop in before in a different animation, so I'm going to have a little bit of stuff to work with there. But most part, I haven't had him pop in this suit, so I have to animate a pop in. I'll show you guys how I do that. It's a pretty easy part of the animation, but it will kind of break down some parts. Also, I have what I call a Leica, although it's basically just a screenshot of what I want to happen in the animation. And I just kind of follow along with that. I kind of map it out after I get the script done, after I send the narration, or send the script to the narrator, Stanton Nichols. I will start mapping out what I want the scenes to look like. And sometimes I change things in post a little bit, or I mess around with like where the audio is. But for the most part, I tend to follow along to what I write down here. Although if I can think of an easier way to do something, I do. Also in this animation and in all my animations, I have a grid. And that just helps me to keep things centered. My early animations, I did not use this, and there's some off-centerness to them that I do not love. Especially, I think like the Jason, the Michael Myers one, and the Batman one are somewhat off-center at certain points, and it kind of bothers me. And I'll probably eventually update all those ones at some point again. And then after I think the scene's done, I typically turn on this placeholder background scene, and I clip the sides over here so then I can see the animation, what it will look like in full. Even though I do not put the color slides into these animation scenes. Those are done separately in, oh no, did I just close everything? Yeah, I did. All right, I'm gonna reopen. Okay, there we go. What else did I do? What is going on? This mouse is freaking out. Okay, there we go. Things are back up. Okay, so yeah. So once things are, well, I lost my train of thought. Lose the screen, and it's kind of like walking through a door and you're like, why did I come in this room? But anyway, so yeah, just have a background. Like all the background slides are done in After Effects, and then they're rendered up from there and put into Premiere. So right now, these scenes basically just worry about the character animation. So inside the scene, I've already put all the major blocking in this. So I'll let you guys know what that is. So when I click inside of his comp, so this is his 2002 suit as it appears in that movie. And then throughout this video, so the first thing that's going to happen, he's going to pop in, And then he's going to be grabbed by a little hand that looks like Mickey the Mouse, because he's going to be transported into the MCU, which is, of course, owned by Disney. So I'm going to have kind of a callback to my Spider-Man animation, where I've had Mickey's hand grab the Sony version of Spider-Man at the time and toss that into a garbage bin, and then so that they can make a Disney version into the MCU. So I have a similar thing that's going to happen in this one, and then he's going to start slowly transforming into what his suit looks like in the new movie. So like they kind of just made some small changes, made it look a little bit more simplified, and they got rid of some of the rivets. I'll kind of like zoom in a little bit if you want to see that. So the first change is that. And then it's going to add a little bit of dirt, I believe. Yep. So it's a bit dirtier. I think it's probably because at this point he was transported after one of his fights with Spider-Man, after he learned who he was. And then his mask is altered a little bit as well. So it's already been altered to like simplified like that. And then it's dirtier. And then he has an angry brow, and they switched up the golden eyes. I might do the joke I used in the Godzilla one where when it says he has more golden eyes, I might have him hold up N64 cartridges of GoldenEye. I do love that game. I do like to kind of put little jokes like that into my animations. But that's the main thing for him. And then he starts to really change the suit up. The mask is ditched. I might have it be erased away with a big pencil or something. Then the goggles will pop on or snap on. And then he gets a battle damage look. I think he also added in some other parts into it, but I'm just gonna put that into the battle damage look part. I'm not sure how I'm gonna show him getting battle damage yet. If I'll have like a rock hitting him or just have an explosion or something. I don't know. And then he adds a satchel, and looks like he has like little clips on his like shoulders there that it keeps it in place. And then he adds the hoodie. And then he adds like gauntlets and extra little bits onto his arms. And that's his look in there. And then it goes into the animation itself, which will involve him, I think, jumping down from this screen onto this screen with all these Spider-Man. They'll get into like a fight cloud, which I'll copy in from one of my other animations, and also to add in a bit of fight. And then eventually this Spider-Man, Tom Holland Spider-Man, will throw the anti-goblin serum at him, and he'll disappear, and those Spider-Man will be left like giving each other like thumbs up or something. And then that's the end of this animation, and then goes into the little ending scene that I have, which I already animated, or have had my friend Gal partly animate, and I just finished it up. So yeah, so I'm gonna just walk you through something simple. So that's how I set up a scene. And let's pop them in. So I never really think, I just kind of do. So right now I have a little bit of a landing pose that I was used in the 2002 video that I did for the Spider-Man. You'll see that one for this scene. So I'm just going to switch it up a little bit here because it's just going to pop in. Oh wait, I turned the grid off. Why would I do that? And the Leica. There we go. Okay, it's going to have him pop in. Make sure with armored stuff you kind of want to make sure that nothing's like sliding in and out. So a little bit there. So if I squish this down, squish this over, do that, just have his knees bend a bit more because he's going to be landing in this pose. So there we go. And that works pretty well. I don't see any weird sliding or anything. It is kind of difficult to draw and also animate armored stuff because it's just things have to connect a bit more than something that's like fleshy or just like one solid color, that you're gonna notice if something is sliding all over the place. That's why animating the Iron Man video was probably the toughest one that I will ever animate, and why I've been a little bit resilient on not having done any Transformers animations. Even though I do love that Transformers series, I was a huge fan of the Beast Wars video series back in the day, or animated series back in the day. But I don't know, just like doing armored stuff. Like eventually I'll probably cover some Transformers, but it's just like it's so much harder. I don't know. It's just, for me, it's just hard to like get it to be realistically drawn and have it animated properly. So, you know, eventually I'll just probably do Optimus Prime or Bumblebee or some of the bad guys in the Transformers series. But for now, you'll have to be happy that I'm doing some armored goblins. And I'm doing it for you. Although I do like this look for the goblin. I almost like it better than his new look. Although I do get why they changed it in the movie. They wanted Willem Dafoe to like be able to emote and act, because he has less scenes in this movie than obviously he had in the 2002 one. So they're going to want to show his face off a bit more, because they paid probably good money to get him back. And they don't want to cover it up with a mask. Although I never disliked this mask. A lot of people did. So what I do is basically I've made a key right before this drop. So I kind of have been working backwards. I used to like work forwards on these, but I find it's almost easier to work backwards. So I'm going to drag this same key over there, and it's just going to load. Take a second, take a sip of tea while it does that. Okay, so now it's loaded. So this key is going to be a slightly less extreme version of that key. So it's kind of like I'm easing into the fully popped up pose there. I've done so many of these pop-ins that it's ridiculous. I've probably had, like, I tend to have 3 different entrances for characters, sometimes 4, but the main one is the character popping in, and then there's a character dropping in, and a character popping up, and there's also a character just like coming up onto screen like halfway through, like shoulder-wise, where you don't see their legs. But for the most part, I find the popping in one is the most satisfying to see. But when I did my original animation, I found that doing so many pops in a row with the Jason one, I started switching things up a bit more, where I was like, okay, I'll have them pop up, have them drop in. So it's like just different ones, and I tend to like go in order. So I'll go pop, pop up. When it was it pop, it'll go pop in, pop up, drop in. And that's typically the order I follow. Sometimes I mess around with it depending on if like a scene, like I really want a character to be doing a certain thing to come in. But just luckily enough, this one happened to be a pop in. So yeah, I get to pop in my favorite version of the Green Goblin, which I am excited for. So I'll just make this a little bit more extreme, the second one. I really do want it to like pop in, and then you kind of like goes from there to there. If I have to go up a little higher, I tend to leave the shadow looking the same here. I don't want to mess with it too much. Okay, so I'm still looking at this. Try and mess with the timing a little bit. Just going to okay, going to remove some frames and then add some frames to the back. Half of them. Okay, so since he's popping in, he's going to need his everything to be kind of condensed. Now, typically, I never had to actually pop in a character like this until I started doing my own videos. So this isn't like really typical animation stuff. It's a bit more technical. I say that animation's more of it's an art form, but it's really more almost mathematical, and it's just like a mixture of like trying to do something where it looks realistic, but at the same time exaggerated. Because you can really start to tell if something feels off with an animation. Alright, so I think I'm gonna be pretty happy with this timing.
2002 Goblin.
That's what it looks like when it's just keyframes. And then I'll ease in to the initial pop, and then I'll have an ease out when he reaches that look.
2002 Goblin.
Yep, so that looks pretty good. And then when he goes down to that, sorry, I'm just gonna move my stuff around here a little bit. There we go. Just gonna have him ease in. Now easing in. Oh yeah, I guess you can't see that on the screen. I have things zoomed in, but here I'll drag that over a little bit. So there's easing out and there's easing in. Choose one or the other, basically, is the general rule. So when I say ease in, it means that it takes a little bit longer to like get to that pose. Like not keyframe wise, it takes the same amount of keyframes, but it's just like it like stays closer to the initial look for a little bit longer. So I'll show what an ease in is. So that's an ease into there. If I were to do an ease out, so it's the same frames, but it's just he gets to that point more quickly. I find it looks a little bit better to have this easing in at first to like kind of getting quicker into it, and then easing out from there. So when I say ease in for this part, so it's just like he's gonna have a bit more hang time at top, and then he's gonna get down. There we go. Let me just drag this back. Okay, so before he hits the ground, I'm going to want to stretch out things a little bit more. I don't want him to be bending his knees yet because he hasn't hit the ground. That's going to be an impact thing. So yeah, things need to like puzzle into place a bit. I'm going to have his arms drag, his arms drag back a little bit, and have his hand drag back a little bit. It's all just about like making something that looks good, or because obviously like people don't actually pop in to place, but it needs to look like it functions inside this animation. All right, so then I'm going to just stretch the body a little bit, and then maybe the head a tiny bit. I don't like to squish the heads too much.
Goblin is
There we go. That looks pretty good. But I will actually have him go up a little higher with the initial pop. A little bit higher than that. There.
2002.
And then even probably a little higher here when he's first initially popping in.
2002 Goblin is
There you go. And I think he's a little bit big for the frame. I'll just put this down to an exact. I'm gonna say 192. That's a little too much. Maybe 194. Yeah, that looks good. I'm just gonna have them just right there. There we go. That looks good.
2002 Goblin is
Okay, so that's just a little. That's how you pop something in.
2002
Not too
Goblin
exciting. And usually, if the character's eyes are showing, in this case, he's wearing a helmet, so they're not. But I would usually have them blinking, and then they would blink when they hit the floor or ground, and then they open up before they hit the top there. So there's his human model. And then he goes in. So that's a pop in. Okay. I'm not sure how much more I'm going to show you guys what I'm doing, but yeah, I guess I'll skip a little bit here
into the MCU
because he's going to be taken. Well, maybe I'll do this part. He's going to be taken by Mickey Mouse here. I'm trying to think like what part of him I want him the hand to grab. I think I want him to grab the top of his little helmet there, and then drag him over. And when this hand comes in, I'm going to want to probably zoom out a little bit. Like not too much, but just enough that you can like see him being lifted. So I'm going to work from this angle.
2002 Goblin is mistakenly
So that's reuse animation from the Amazing Spider-Man 2 that I did for Spider-Man's video, which I will hopefully one day do an update for. But right now I'm working on the old Gobby. So I want the hand to lift him up from the head. So I'm going to have him come up. And do that. So he's gonna have to like kind of react like, huh? But he can't move his head. It has to be basically vertical because his head is like under control of Mickey. But his hands and his arms can react to what's going on. That can go down. Yeah, just the problem with dealing with armored stuff is things need to connect more. Like I'll show this with like maybe a more fleshy character eventually. But for now, you can watch this one. Let's see. Okay, so that's a keyframe to me. And then when he gets lifted, his shadow will get smaller. I probably also put an alpha on it. So there it goes. Alpha just means I'm putting some sort of transparency on it. You can do it with any symbol because all these are different symbols. Everything's basically its own comp. So this arm comp has its own stuff going on inside of it. This has its like masks going on that are showing like the purple highlights here, so that when I press lock on them, they're like showing up on the actual model. It's all very like easy to me because I've dealt with this program for like forever, but it is somewhat complicated. So this isn't going to be like me showing you how to do stuff so much as it is just me letting you watch me do something. So actually, I don't know if I like his arm or his hands, his legs being out like that. Sorry guys. I was just cleaning for like 2 hours in my house, and my girlfriend's coming over in like less than a half hour or so. So I'm just gonna try and get as much done as I can right now. Show you guys what I'm doing. Okay, so he's being lifted up. Bat.
Being transported.
So I want him to come up, and then I'm going to do an overshoot on him coming up. So it's going to go a little bit higher. Just a little bit more. So an overshoot is basically, in an animation, it's kind of like you go into a pose, but then you go a little bit further into that pose, and then you back off from that pose. So it's kind of like just an exaggerated version of the initial pose that I did. Sometimes you can get away with not having an overshoot, but I do find it makes it a little bit more cushiony when watching the animation, and a little bit more pleasurable to watch. Is his leg sliding up there too much? Trying to get the curve to fit in. See how that works. Back it out a little bit. There we go. Okay. Right, I'm gonna do a little bit more because he is kind of being held up by that hand, or he will be held up by that hand. So yeah, being grabbed. So
Taking me transport.
So ignore the hand for now. That's not.
Taking me transported. Taking me transported. Taking me transported.
Alright. So sometimes before an action, you have something that's called a what's it called? I can't remember. Like an anticipation. Yeah, an anticipation. So before I'm going to take him off that direction, basically, is my plan. But before that, I'm going to have the hand go backwards, anticipating going into that action. So it's going to be a somewhat bigger action for the hand. So basically, right now, the Green Goblin is a passenger to that hand. Basically, he's a passenger to that animation that's happening to him, and his animation has to reflect that. So he's not the primary animation right now. The hand will be. So he's going to be taken back. Taken back that way. There we go. And then I should have made another keyframe there, but I'm just going to drag this initial keyframe over to the other side. Drink some tea. Okay, that's gone there. So even though it's just a reaction, it's going to be just one move for the hand, but for him it's going to need a settle as well, because it's going to sit there for a second. And he's just going to have to kind of wobble like a bobblehead, is what I want to happen. So his head needs to more or less stay firm, or at least in the same kind of spot, because he's going to be being pinched on the top of it. But it's going to go over that way. So his arm that way. And then his legs need to react. So this is kind of just this is like a cushion, but formerly it's called a settle. So he's going to settle into basically the same pose that he had here, but now it's going to be over here. So I think I'm going to change it just a little bit, just to give it a little bit of variety. So, yeah. And there. Yeah. all these lines, they don't look great, but hopefully it renders out okay. When actually with the animation, because it's just such a busy suit. But here we go. Alright, so right now that's a ease out, and I think these should all be ease outs, because if you want something to look soft, use an ease out.
Ported into the MCU. Ported into the MCU.
I don't love that.
Ported into the.
I wonder if I can mess with the time a little bit. So. Do this, then use the onion skin tool here. Just have it a little bit further that way.
Ported into the MCU. Ported into the M. Mistakenly transported into the MC.
Okay.
Ported into the MC.
Still think I want to mess with the timing a little bit. So I'm going to actually have this be partly an ease in. And then it's going to ease out from there.
Ported into the MC.
And make it a little slower. Animation's kind of just like you're going to have animation knowledge from doing it for so long, but it's also somewhat of a guessing game half the time, where you don't know if something's going to look 100% right until you try it. So
ported into the MCU.
I think that'll look okay. And then the hand will have to start going.
His armor.
So needs to be transported to the other side of the screen. So whoop. Now usually when I'm working I have like music or a movie or a TV show or something on in the background, or if I'm researching something I'll be watching something for the animation. But because I'm doing this for you guys, I have nothing on in the background, just my own internal thoughts, and yeah, and these external thoughts. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna have this upload this raw, or if I'm gonna do anything to the audio. Hopefully the audio is okay. Hopefully you guys can hear both me and this animation. Okay, so the head will have to basically stay stationary, but the body will have to follow the laws of physics. So it's going to be reacting like so. Okay. Alrighty, so there we go.
Ported into the MCU.
It just takes too long to get into that. Yeah, she just have to be fully in. For that part, just have to go a little bit quicker.
Ported into the MC.
Yeah, that works better. Yeah, sometimes you're gonna mess with things. So mess with the timing a little bit. Things happen a little bit quicker. Might have the hand come in even a little sooner.
Mistaking. Goblin is mistake. Goblin is mistake.
Yeah, so I think he's standing around for a little too long at the start. Gonna move things around a little bit. Just a little bit. Give a little bit. Give a little bit.
Mistakenly transported. Mistakenly transport.
Yeah, that's a little too much on the top. There we go.
Mistakenly transport.
And just soften that up a little bit. Get rid of
Mistakenly
frames.
transported into the MCU. Transported into the MCU.
And then it's going to come back around on this side of the screen.
Into the MCU.
May have this whole part just be quicker. Yeah, I don't think he needs to stay there. The arm, the hand might be staying in that spot for like a second or two. But I don't think he needs to stay there. I think we should get right to the good. So from there, I think we should start really going into there. Oh, that's my dog. Hear him slapping his ears around. Okay. That will just give me a bit more time to let him get into the next screen and then settle before his armor starts transforming or changing, whatever you want to call it. Because that's what this video is all about, his different looks. And his different ways about him. So
Transported into the MC.
yeah, that'll be
Transported into the MC.
Okay. So I'm going to take from here. So he's going to go off screen, and then it's going to be a color change, and then he's going to come back onto screen. So he's going to start from that side and go onto screen. And then he'll drop down again. So I'm going to reuse this animation probably for when he's dropping down, or when he gets dropped down from Mickey, or just a hand that looks like Mickey. It's not actually Mickey, if Disney's watching us. Then maybe it's Bendy or whatever. That's a pretty popular thing. Need him to go back. Need him to be in like this pose after he gets dragged back in. I just love when dogs just scratch leather things thinking they're making their bed. Okay. So here we go. We're recording for about a half hour at this point. Hopefully you guys are learning something about what I do and why these videos take so long. Because this is just the animation portion. Because I basically have to design a whole new set of models each time I start any animation. And while I do have some reuse that I can use throughout animations, for the most part I am doing almost new animations for each character every time. Whereas sometimes I can use reference from other things that I've done similarly, but like for the most part it's like different animation, unique animation to specific scenes. So this is like a 26 second scene. So a scene like that, or a scene like this, takes about, I think it would take an average animator probably 2.5 days. I could probably get it done in like a day and a half, 26 seconds. Okay. So that's where I want him to end up before he gets dropped. I need him to settle, because he's not just gonna toss them right away. He needs to be dropped. Alrighty. Go. Just needs to be an opposite. Usually a settle needs to be a reaction to the movement that was just happening. So he was being dragged in this way, so settle has to go the opposite way. So for all intents and purposes, he kind of has to be almost like a pendulum. And his head has to be the center of that pendulum. You guys hear that they're doing a Goosebumps live action TV show on Disney Plus. Although I think it's going to be closer to the movie and less like the original TV series where it was all an anthology, where it's all being mashed together, kind of like scary stories to tell in the dark, which I'm kind of getting tired of this. Why can't they make an anthology series anymore? Maybe it's just because it's easier to cast just the same kids over and over again. But I guess like American Horror Stories, an anthology. But it's a new, like, I just kind of miss like shows like Tales from the Crypt and The Outer Limits and The Twilight Zone, where they can kind of just like do these like unique stories in one episode or 2 episodes or whatever, instead of having to have everything connect like the MCU. And I love the MCU, don't get me wrong. I just wish things could be just one-offs. Okay, so
The MCU, his armor.
it's good, but his head is probably a little too stationary. There should be some movement there. Should the shadow be moving too? Maybe a little bit.
His armor. The MCU, his armor.
Alright, so then he gets dropped. Really, it shouldn't be too long in the air from when he gets dropped. I can just like that. And he should not be bending his knees. That's when you have to create your second keyframe. You just kind of have to have it. Everything's always about reaction, action with animation. So this is everything I'm doing right now is a reaction to him being dropped. Or I should add the hand in so you guys can see what I'm talking about. But he's going to be getting dropped by the Mickey Mouse equivalent hand. And this is the reaction to that dropping. So I'm just going to stretch his body a little bit. It's not going to be as like pronounced as a.
His armor is slight.
And then, yeah. And then it goes
His
through.
armor is slightly
Alright.
slightly simplified.
I don't know. I feel like I almost like the way they had the armor in the original one. But maybe it's just because of CGI, so they just simplified it a little bit. But he does wear the actual suit too, so I don't know why they changed it. It should be the exact same, but I guess they even changed Dr. Octopus's look a little bit too. And I like. Do you guys think the lizard looked different? I think it was a little brighter in No Way Home than he did in the original one. But maybe that was just the lighting. Sandman was all sand. Electro looked way different. That's why I did like a poll for this one. I think it was Electro, Mysterio, Green Goblin, and Dr. Octopus. And Electro, I think it got the least amount of votes, or maybe Mysterio got the least amount of votes. But like, just I like looked up all the different looks of like Electro through the years.
His armor is.
And it's actually kind of like staggering how different they are.
His armor is slightly.
That works. Okay. No. No. Why do I sound like that? Alright. So I'm going to have. I'm trying to decide if I want this to be in the comp or out of the comp. I think I'm going to put it in the comp. I'm just going to take his hand here. I'm going to hide this. So, let's go back here. Alright. I'm just going to go. I'll put this in the comp for now. I might take it out of the comp once the animation's done. At this point, he's getting lifted up. Let's say around here, the hand should be coming in. It's a little big in scale, I think. What's the scale to right now? The lines are thick on it, so I can scale it down. I won't hurt it. Or anything like that. Okay, just gonna make the arm a little longer. Different arm later. Let's see. Okay. Just distribute this to different layers. Then it needs to grab him. And I have a grabbing finger. Sounds okay. That's pretty good. I have two different ones. I think this one looks better. Okay. So 7. Frame 7. I'll need a little bit of an overlay for him grabbing his head. So basically I just need to match the animation there. So I'm going to do what I do with the popping, and this is going to be, I have it come in from, it looks like it's coming in from further away. So it's going to scale up a little bit, I think. I don't know if there's a different hand I should use during that part. No, I think the hand I have there is good enough. We can keep. I'm going to keep the same hand while it's coming in. And while it's coming in, I think I should use an in on it.
It is mistakenly
yeah. I'm not sure if I need a slight pause in there, but I'm going to start animating this and see what it looks like. So then it's being grabbed. So where was it here? It's just a little above the ears. That should be. That looks okay to me. So then that goes down. Okay, so
and is mistakenly
that works pretty well.
And is mistakenly transported.
Yeah. So then, as I was saying before, he is just a passenger. Simply a passenger at this point in the animation. Because I kind of like think in my head sometimes that certain parts of the animation are driving the animation forward, and other parts are simply reacting to what's going on in the animation. So usually the main character is what's driving the animation forward in the video. But at this particular point in this scene, Mickey's hand is driving the animation forward. Or the equivalent to Mickey, his non-copyrighted equivalent. I know Disney gets really upset when people mess with Mickey. So, yeah. The hand, this arm has to. Can't look like that. Should I have a bend in it or something? Should have it be longer. Longer, it's a long hand. Okay. Maybe that could work. It's ridiculous. Kind of looks ridiculous. So if I'm grabbing something, sorry, I'm kind of looking at the way I'm doing something. So obviously if this is actually a full model, his shoulder would be here probably. Or over the other way. Okay, actually I'm gonna have to mess with stuff a little bit. Don't want to have to mess with that. So when he's going over that way, I'm going to need a slightly modified hand. So you go like this, that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Okay. Sorry, I have like a beanbag on my neck right now. It's warming. Kind of like mess with my neck when I was working out the other day. So yeah, there we go. Okay. Have you been going out to any movies recently? Went to go see Scream 5 recently. It was pretty good. Pretty good. I might do a re-ranking of the Scream franchise on my account. I was meaning to do it a couple weeks ago, but I got busy with other stuff. I do like the Scream series. I think it's one of the few horror franchises that there isn't really a dud in the batch. Like, obviously Scream 3 isn't amazing, has the most amount of issues, but it's still a very watchable movie and enjoyable. Okay, so I'm going to need a few different hands at this point. It's all kind of tedious, but I'll keep walking you through it. Version of that again. Yeah. If you're not a patient person, you're not going to get too far in animation. Yeah. Patience has always been my virtue. And if you get annoyed when something takes a long time, you'll never ever finish a project. It's something you can learn, I think. But I think like any artist knows that when something's on paper, it takes a lot longer than you'd even expect. Sometimes it takes longer than I expect when I want to do things. Where I'm like, I'll get this done today, and then it takes like way longer because it's just unforeseen stuff that you never know what you're gonna deal with. Because like animation is, I think by far, is just kind of problem solving. I had a problem there, and I think I've more or less solved it here, hopefully.
Transported into the
Or why don't I just, like, I know I just did like a whole bunch of stuff there for that, but I should just maybe have this be, let's see, so what is that, 8? There we go. I should just have that be what it looks like, because it is kind of a little awkward having to change position there. I'm just going to redo or rejigger some of this animation a little bit. So there we go. Yeah, that looks good. I don't know if I'll have to change the first little bit when it comes in, but cross that road in a second here. Yeah, that works. No, I don't think I'll have to. Just have it coming up. Yeah. I can change it slightly and go this way. More vertical and a little bit less.
One is mistakenly
that works more or less. Now, one thing I'm going to do, I think I do have an in-between hand. Where? Right there. I'm going to slightly alter it to match this little tail here. So, there we go. Why am I not doing that? Ah, it's on the group. Okay, break that apart. There we go. Okay. Okay. Oh. Girlfriend says she's coming over soon. I probably got about 20 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. I can keep messing with this scene. I'll keep the camera rolling. I don't know how exciting this is for anybody, but hopefully you're learning a little bit about animation and why it's hard. It's not hard, but well, it is hard if you don't know what you're doing, but it's time consuming. It's a time consuming little process. I don't think a lot of people don't realize that. They see the final product and they think, oh, I can do that. Or they think, this must be pretty easy, or that looks like fun. Where it's really more about, it's not really about fun. Animation is a tedious little thing. I don't want people to like think, oh, it's just so fun, it's just that, because like then people start devaluing people's time for animations. There we go. That looks good.
Is mistakenly transported in.
Yeah, that will work. I'm just going to change this hand up to the new one. Move this down a little bit.
Transported into the MC. Transported in. Transported into the MC.
Get the hand out of the way there. That's to speed up a little bit.
Transported into the MC. Transported into the MC.
There, that's off screen. Just barely off screen, but that works.
Transported into the MCU. Transported into the MCU. Is
in? Yeah, that's in it. Okay, so let's take this hand. He needs to animate to there. So move it over. Move it over. Go. Okay. Now we're cooking with fire. I think it looks good when it's also in there. I think.
The MCU is.
I'm going to have a slight, like kind of like a cushion with the hand, not really a settle. Even move the goblin a little bit closer here. That way it cushion the hand a bit more. There we go.
His arm.
Alright, so he's getting dropped there. So. Okay. So, right here, I want his hands fully open. Oops, what's going on with this one? He's like, yeah, there we go. Something fun to do. Okay. So I'm going to take that. That. Go, fill that in. Fill everything over here. There we go. Okay. Fill that there. Okay, just start moving. Yeah. the frame. Okay, I think that could be done. Out? Maybe an in. Let's see. I'll see what it looks like in a minute.
His armor is slightly.
I think it's just going in the wrong direction. Let me see.
His armor is slight.
That worked.
His armor is slightly. Armor.
Alright, so when he hits the ground, I want to zoom the camera back in. Oops, sorry, I got a colored shirt on. Oops, just hit the mic. Alrighty, so when he hits the ground, I want to zoom back in to 100%. It has to be exactly where it was before. So, there. So, okay, so fit there, there, a little bit, there. So, I just see that again. Ooh, there we go. Not matching. It's one frame. Ooh, there. Just try that. Perfect. Okay. Oh, what's going on here? It's my hands. Oh, right. Still have that in there. Delete. Okay.
Mistakenly transported in.
So when he gets grabbed, it starts going up. That's when I'll open the camera up. Just want things to look dynamic, and you don't want any unmotivated camera moves. If something has an unmotivated camera move, I think your body can it just feels wrong. It just feels so wrong. Oh, it feels wrong. There we go. So I have a couple of eases that I've made. Are a mix of ease ins and ease outs.
Mistakenly transported into the MCU. His armor is. His armor is.
I feel like his settle needs to be a little bit slower. So to do that, I need a bit more time. Yeah, I'm just gonna move things over slowly. Mint tea. It's good. It's good. That's all I have to say about that. Okay, so I'm just gonna mess with this timing a little bit. And then I need to move the settle just ever so slightly over. Ever so slightly. Ooh, this is coming up on an hour now. Yeah, I'll finish this part off.
MCU. His armor.
Yeah, it looks a lot better. Then it's just gotta slow things down a little bit. So when he hits the ground, I then think want that to have the camera coming in. See what that looks like.
His armor is slightly.
Yeah, that works.
His armor is slightly simplified.
Probably I'll do it a little bit slower, just by one frame.
His armor is slightly simplified.
Okay. Synchronize any symbols in case anything got off.
Is mistakenly transported into the MCU.
There you go. Looks like a little baby being transported. So now you're probably also thinking, hey, Aaron, there should be an overlay on the hand. How can he be pinching something if he's not touching it? Well, aren't you Mr. Smarty Pants then? Well, hello, Mr. Fancy Pants. But you're totally right. When you're right, you're right. So I'm going to add an overlay to this part. I'm just going to put it over top of all of his stuff here. You can't see what I'm doing, but I'm dragging that hand over top. I'm going to lock every layer. Here, okay, I'll show you what I'm doing. Okay, so I just put like a layer, his hand over top of his hand. It's over top of everything, not just his hand. And I'm going to create a new symbol. And it's just going to be the tip. Just the tip. Sometimes that's all you need. Just the tip. Okay, so just the tip of his hand. And it's at frame 14. So I'm going to use this frame editing tool. Going to zoom out. Swap. No, not swap. Might do. Just click on it and then change the symbol's number to match with the new frame that you just drew. And hopefully that looks okay.
Mistakenly transported into the MCU. His armor is slightly...
Yeah, it looks okay, I think. I'll show it better on screen here.
Into the MCU. His armor is slightly simplified.
Okay. Yeah. I think it looks pretty good so far. So he has a little mouth here. You can see a little bit. So I will have to animate a couple of little things for that, but that's like face work and blinks and stuff that I typically do after I'm done a full animation. So yeah, that looks pretty good to me. The first 6 seconds of this scene done. That's like, it's pretty easy. That was pretty easy animation. Maybe one day I'll animate like how I do like a fight scene or something, or actually do like some of the changes. Maybe I'll like show you guys how I would go from there to there. I think I'll just have that pop in actually, or I'll have it like go from the top here and then down. That's typically another one that I do a lot. And then dirtiness. I'm not sure how I'm gonna show like dirtiness yet. Might have him like get hit with a bucket, but I kind of like had a different goblin get hit with venom goo earlier in the animation, so I don't know if I want to do that same thing again. So yeah, I'm not sure how I'm gonna show him getting dirtier. That's tomorrow's problem. But yeah, there you go. That's just a little bit of animation done, and the rest of this animation is just getting him to look like that, and then having him fight a couple Spider-Men and get transported back to his real universe. So yeah, so I don't know, I might record myself again doing one of these, or with the same animation or a different animation. Let me know what you guys thought of this. And yeah, until next time, I've been Aaron, and I'll tell you something later. Or in this case, I'll show you something later. Okay, you guys have a great one. Bye.